Let's do that one more time. What's up, Wizard World Philly?
Yay! That's something.
There we go. Thank you for coming out to Dark Knights of the Round Table, course correcting the DCEU, where we're going to sit down and figure out if we have a better way to start this universe that was kind of on shaky ground from the get-go. They've course corrected themselves with things like Aquaman and Shazam and Wonder Woman, but other films have been less than great. I think that's fair to say. We'll see what the panelists have to say. Let's kick things off. Let's introduce the panelists. I am Kevin Gallagher, the host of Everything is Awesome, a local interview show here in Philadelphia where we sit down and talk to people from Philly, people from all over the world who do awesome things. We talk about them things there on awesomepodcast.com. Our first panelist, Kelly Gaines, writer for DC Comic News. And a bunch of other things that I honestly don't remember. I apologize. Where else do you write?
So I write for, oh God, no, I
She forgot where she worked at.
Yeah, no, geez. But yeah, I've done some different copywriting for, good Lord, the Dark Knight News, the Batman. Oh gosh. You know what?
There's a lot of
Batman stuff. Basically.
Where's your Twitter? Give your Twitter, and then they can find where you write there.
All right. Twitter, Kel Gaines, Gaines, right? And yeah, that's where you can find everything. I remember much better on there.
She's nervous because she's the one that lets her parents come to these things. I don't invite my parents for this very reason because I'll forget everything. Our next panelist from the All Ports Open Network and writer of the book called All Ports Open, correct?
No avatars allowed.
No avatars allowed. It's all the same thing, kind of. Joshua Wise.
Hi.
Hey,
That's
Josh.
how you're going to introduce yourself.
I'm a professor of theology. I'm a writer of a book about theology and video games, and I run the All Ports Open Network, which is a lot of podcasts about games and gaming. That's kind of it.
It's a great network, not as good as mine, of course.
No, second best podcast network out of Philly.
We're the number one podcast in Bucks County. That's what I take claim of. I don't want to take claim of Philadelphia.
Take Delco, then.
Well, you guys some competition with Doom Thugs. But our last panelist is from the Blacklisted Podcast, ex-professional wrestler. I don't think I've seen you in the ring recently like our other friend here, Anthony Chaos Anderson.
Yay! I know that guy.
Yeah, Anthony from Blacklisted Podcast. What we do is we review everything in pop culture with an urban point of view. And if you don't know what that means,
You're ashy.
Yeah, I'm not ashy. I'm a little bit more tan than most of y'all. But in between movies, TV, comics, wrestling, even some music, we just give our point of view on it. Just four guys yelling at each other in the room, and sometimes we even agree. And you can find us at Blacklisted Podcast anywhere you steal your podcast from.
Love the energy, Anthony.
Yeah, it's like watching paint dry, right?
All right, so I think the way we should go about this is the DCEU had a lot of missteps in the beginning.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, let's start there. I want to know, what do you guys think of those early DC? Because I think we can all agree, movies like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Shazam, based out of Philadelphia.
Sure.
I'm sure we all saw it, right?
Sure.
Those movies kind of like take a better fun spin on the DCEU. But what are I'm not going to assume you guys hate the beginnings of the DCEU. So let's start with Kelly. What are your thoughts on those early movies?
The plot, not even the plot development, the character development is what bothers me. That's just right off the bat. There wasn't as much attention, I feel, to developing the characters for the sake of the characters, and I think they focused a lot more on the cinematic end than they did on actually, being true to the spirit of the characters as it shows up in the actual comics. So especially with with a movie like Superman, in Man of Steel, it's good-ish, but I think they tried to hit a Batman tone in a Superman movie, and that's a little...
Does not work.
No.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason Batman works in that darker world, and Superman, the Boy Scout, is supposed to not live in that dark world.
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The character development is a problem, and like just the characters themselves are not particularly fleshed out, or they don't ring true. But I think that most of those movies, even Aquaman, which I don't think is a good movie. I think Aquaman's a bad movie with a very charming middle section where like Arthur and Mira are doing National Treasure for like 15 minutes, and the rest of it is the Phantom Menace underwater. Like,
I mean, listen, the Phantom Menace comment aside, I don't see anything wrong with that. National Treasure's great.
Yeah, sure. 15 minutes of it, and it was good. That's the part. But that was a moment of character development where you have them being characters. But those movies really have like and I don't want to trash him too much, but the Zack Snyder mentality that you need a hero shot in the movie. You need a moment where someone rises and then looks at the camera and then like just does a hero pose, and they don't earn any of that. Like that's pretty much the depth of those movies, and I feel like for a lot of those, for the series in general, that's where the problem is there's a lot of sort of unearned pomp.
I see, and we're not going to spend too much time talking about these individual movies because I think, like I said, we're fixing and coming up with our own thing here. But see, what I loved about Aquaman, to counter your hatred because you're not fun, is the fact that it takes you somewhere that we've never really been before. It's almost Star Wars in that way, where Star Wars took us to space. Yeah, it's Star Wars New Hope in that way, where it takes us to space. It's a fun movie underwater. I really that's what I loved about it. I really enjoyed it. I can't believe, now I feel like I'm the guy that likes Man of Steel and I'm going to defend Zack Snyder now. Anthony.
Yeah, that's what it is like I said, a character development, and you shouldn't use your next movie to fix problems from your previous movie, because then that just drags them down, and as you know how they say, the crap goes downhill. And once that ball started rolling at Man of Steel, and then trying to just fix everything afterwards, the other movies just started getting bogged down more and more.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem DC had was that they wanted to play catch up. Right? They saw Marvel doing, I don't think they've really took one big misstep in the last 11 years. The biggest misstep maybe is The Dark World, and after Endgame, I want to go back and watch that movie because it will make me cry now because of what they've done with Endgame. But they wanted to catch up, and I think that's the big problem. They wanted to put the Justice League together and get them there as soon as possible. So I think they skipped a lot of important steps. So let's try to restructure that. And I think the only thing we're going to go forward with is that there was a Zack Snyder Man of Steel. That is what launched this universe.
Okay.
Love it, hate it, whatever. That launched this universe. And that we're not going to change that. But let's go from there. And what would we have done? What would you guys have done to move on from Man of Steel? And for me, Man of Steel, the biggest issue that movie has is that, because Henry Cavill is, I think, a great Superman. I love that character. I love him as that character. He hasn't had a great script. And what makes him so special, what makes Clark so special, is that Jonathan Kent is the guy who instills all those values. And in Man of Steel, for lack of a better word, Jonathan Kent is there's no children here, he's a dick. All right, so Jonathan Kent is not he's willing to sacrifice a bus full of children. So that's my big issues with that movie. But we have to move on from that, because I think we do see glimpses of a good Man of Steel in other movies. We see a good Superman with Henry Cavill. So let's move on. And whoever wants to jump in. Where do you go for Man of Steel to properly launch a DC connected universe here?
The other backstories for the rest of the Justice League.
Okay.
They did wonderfully with Wonder Woman. Unfortunately, Aquaman was after Justice League, so I think it would have been a very different feel to the movie as a whole if it was before Justice League. But they tried to fit Flash and Cyborg into that one movie, and both of them have a really complex, really interesting backstory. So I think it was just kind of An injustice to both of the characters. That's funny, it's Justice League, but it was an injustice to both of the characters that they didn't get that, one after the other, this is that character's movie, and then they're all together in one. And Marvel may have done that too, but I didn't feel like they were trying to rush into like, oh, now you know and love this character, this is why you should be sad that something's happening to them.
Well, I love Marvel. Marvel did everything right. I think they gave me plenty of time with all the characters that I needed to have characters. They did it in DC's where Warner Brothers, they rushed straight to Batman versus Superman after Man of Steel. And that was it. If you read The Dark Knight Returns, which is that movie's loosely based on, the whole point of that is like, these are two best friends. And you should feel something for this fight that they're about to have. And Batman vs. Superman seems like a great ending point, maybe, or maybe like a 5 to 10 year point in the DCEU. But it's not a great starting off point, because even with Man of Steel, they didn't know they were going to launch a network or a MCU type of feel. They thought they were just going to do individual movies, which ends up working best for them, as we can tell. But they rushed to build this team, and I just went on a tangent. Josh, what would you do?
So I think that's absolutely right, but I think you juxtapose Man of Steel, which is this big world cataclysm type event, with a Batman story, where you do on film what you've never done with Batman before, which is you make him a detective. Like, you really juxtapose, because in Batman 5 Superman, it should be a VS.
That's the thing everyone gets hung up on.
So
how about it's just a bad movie?
We've read it as Batman 4, Man of Steel, Batman 5 Superman, and but if you don't do that, if what you do is just Batman Year One, right, as a small story, and you're retreading a lot of the same ground that Christopher Nolan did, but if you're re-Batmaning again, then you should juxtapose it. You should have something small instead of it always being like an 11 level of danger, right? Because Batman is a street level hero, and this is I think the tension is when you have Superman and Batman, that sort of works together in the comics, but we find that in the movies it's kind of hard to set a right tone for that, and so maybe giving them each the tone and finding a way to bring them together then.
Okay, so after Man of Steel, you're gonna jump on the bandwagon of individual stories, starting with Batman.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
So that's your world's finest, and then you bring in Wonder Woman.
Okay.
And you leave that movie alone.
Perfection. Anthony, what do you have to say about this?
Well, as far as for that, one, I would say they need somebody behind the scenes to steer that ship and not have 5 different people trying to take 5 different movies to one way and not communicating with each other. And then it turns out to be a jumbled mess when you try to put those 5 different characters into one movie, and each one of those 5 different people all want to write on just one movie and bring their same tone of their movie into the one, and not knowing what you're going to do with that one. Mm-hmm. So you need a singular person, and yeah, basically, I'm saying that Kevin Feige.
So you want him to do both universes?
No, I'm not saying
Okay.
Kevin Feige. They need somebody.
They need a Kevin
like
Feige,
that
yeah.
in order to at least bundle everything together and get things to go in
Right.
one direction, instead of going in all different directions and then trying to wind up in the same spot at the same time.
Right, because I think something that DC and Warner Brothers did really well, at least in the early days, is telling singular stories. And I mean, they do it great on the TV side of things. And they're able to tell these stories when they're not interconnected. And if you're Greg Berlanti, you have that magic touch to make them interconnected. Or if you're Kevin Feige in the Marvel world, you are able to do that. But like the Nolan movies are great.
Yeah, as long as they're singular stories,
Right.
they're good. But it's when they try to make them a connected now
Right.
movie is when it becomes a big mashup.
So, diverting a little bit, let's play off that. Who is your guy or gal to be in that role? Let's start with you, Anthony. If you have somebody.
Actually, right now, it seems like...
Don't say Zack Snyder.
No, I don't want Zack Snyder. I don't want him on there. Although somebody who looks like they could do that, I would say James Gunn.
James Gunn? That's very good. We talked about this at another con during this panel. A James Gunn Man of Steel sequel, I think would be, like, I want to see that more than the Suicide Squad movie. But James Gunn in that, I like that. Josh?
Oh, I don't have a good answer, so I'm going to say Lucas.
What?
George Lucas. Put that man in charge of something so that Disney's real mad. Like they.
I think it's bad. It's just.
No, it's a bad idea. It's just.
That's an interesting take.
Patty Jenkins.
Yeah.
She's doing a really good job with Wonder Woman, and she seems to understand, the fact that she's not having Wonder Woman 1984 completely just sequel the initial is, I like that. I like that she's trying to build individual movies instead of just having them, piggyback on each other.
Right.
So she might, I don't know if one person should be in charge of all of those stories, though.
Well, it depends on how you're looking at this, because if you're telling individual stories the way that Wonder Woman mostly did, it only is loosely connected. And the way 1984 seems to be, the way Aquaman kind of was, Shazam is, then you can't have that one person in charge, because then there's no role. Like, what's your point at that point? But in the world where they're trying to replicate Marvel, you do need somebody. And I think she's a good person, because I think she could help tell those individual stories and tie them together very loosely, because she did that with the first Wonder Woman movie. She told that story, had nothing to do with the DCEU, but still it had a little bit of connecting tissues. And that's important when you're building the DCEU. Patty Jenkins is good. I'm a big fan of James Gunn. That was George Lucas was an awful answer.
Yeah.
Someone who I would love to see tackle something in the DC world. I don't know if he would be good as that role of the guy who's making everything. But Kevin Smith, and I'm a big Kevin Smith fanboy. So surprised I'm going to say him, but he's really got a good handle on the characters of that world. He's written some amazing stories in that world. He's directed some of the best television in that world. The Runaway Dinosaur is probably my favorite episode of anything ever on the CW Flash. If you're not watching those CW shows, do it. They're amazing. So I would love to see his take as well. But I think for the sake of diversity, I like Patty Jenkins. That's a good answer. I think she would crush it. She's a great storyteller. So what is the Justice League? Who do we build towards? Is it the core members that we've seen in Justice League? Or is there another iteration of that team that you would try to put together to build towards Justice League?
Do we remove the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie from history so that we can use a Green Lantern?
Yeah, this isn't part of he's not part of the DCEU as it stands, so yes, absolutely.
Okay, then great, Green Lantern.
Green Lantern, yeah. Green Lantern where does he fall in the lineup? You're going to do, so far we have Superman, unfortunately, in that Man of Steel movie, Batman, Wonder Woman. Do you do Green Lantern next? Is there another character that makes more sense to introduce?
Dr. Fate? Do we basically work the same way Marvel does and throw in our Sorcerer Supreme? And just throw in we're adding magic now.
No, because because at the same time I don't want us to be replicating the MCU. We're trying to replicate that success. Uh-huh. We're trying to replicate a good story that the DCU failed at up until Wonder Woman and some of these other solo movies at. So I don't know that you do Dr. That almost seems like he would be a great, I think, tease like Adam Warlock is in the MCU. I think you tease him, maybe he becomes he's part of your
Wave 3.
Wave 4. He's someone you're bringing in 11 years from now.
See, no, actually I don't think so, because Iron Man is not your tier 1 hero. Right? So you bring in somebody that nobody has any investment in.
Right.
So Dr. Fate's actually a really good one, because you can kind of do anything. You could do a dark Cthulhu-esque kind of story that no one's planning on, no one's ready for, as sort of as a way in.
That's a good take. I like that take.
And also that makes nobody has any expectations for it, because we've already had a Superman, we've already had a Wonder Woman and a Batman and a Flash. So while I'm not saying Dr. Fate, how about bringing somebody else in right now that hasn't really had much exposure.
Right.
Make it a bit of a low budget. Don't make it $300 million. Bring it, almost do like a Deadpool and make it like a $50 million movie, and base it around story, and maybe try to build it that way.
We had someone, Barry wants to say something.
Martian Manhunter.
Here you go.
That is, I think, instead of Dr. Fate, I think it's Martian Manhunter you bring in. Because to me, he's the core, like, one of the core members. And I think that is a great character to bring in. And where do you guys fall on the Flash? Because he's obviously another character you need to bring in before you form the Justice League. And for me, again, being the big CW nerd that I am, there's no reason you don't use the Barry Allen that we all know and love, who, in my opinion, when I was first told by Zack Snyder that the reason we're not going to use Grant Gustin is because we're going to go in a completely different direction with Ezra Miller, and you give me a comic-y kind of character who is pretty much the Barry Allen I see on television week in and week out. Give me the guy that I know works, right? Like I think that's where you go. And I know Marvel didn't really have a good success in integrating their TV universe, but something that I think DC does and Warner Brothers does really well is their TV side of things. I don't think have had a miss yet.
That's why you let Berlanti run.
That's a good point. I think the obvious answer too is Berlanti running things, because he's, despite him having some sort of credit on that Green Lantern movie, like they butchered it on his behalf with other writers. But where do you guys fall in that? You know, because we do have a TV universe that works. I think. Do you guys agree that the TV universe works? Do you watch the TV universe?
I fell off of it. I fell off of it from the perspective of, oh, we're doing another speedster this year, are we? Great.
Okay.
It's just
Fair
another
enough.
fast person for the Flash to fight.
Fair enough. But do you bring in the TV universe?
No.
No. You want to keep it separate?
No, I think, and maybe this is just sort of metagaming a bit, is that overall, TV actors don't really translate usually to movies exceptionally well. Mm-hmm. There's sort of a different feel to that. And it's not that people can't, but yeah, it's just never been done. So maybe it would be great, but I feel like you need a big name for the Flash.
Okay.
Like George Lucas.
George Lucas as the Flash. Well, and so as we're talking about course correcting here, the casting, since we're not, Kelly, Anthony, what do you think about the TV universe? Do you integrate it? Do you keep it separate?
If it's written, if they put the focus on writing the integration well, then I see no reason why not to. It's as long as they focus on actually pulling it off, on making it make sense, on making it not just like, ooh, look at that explosion, but actually connect them, thoroughly, then I think, yeah, it could be done.
I mean, because some of the stuff that they pull off on the TV shows at that budget still...
King Shark, guys. King Shark is on television. Grodd.
But
to me, and again, I'm a big Berlanti fanboy. I love the Berlanti verse, so I want to integrate it. But let's go with not. I think there is a point to saying that you do need to make that correct. Who is your cast? Like, do you keep the same cast? Like, what's your who? Let's go with let's not go Cyborg yet. I feel like Cyborg is maybe a post Justice League movie. And you bring him in afterwards, maybe. But let's go. So we have Superman. We already have him cast as Henry Cavill, because I think, that movie happened. We have Batman. We have Wonder Woman. We have Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter, I think, is our 5 that we're going with. So who do you like, who's already been cast in those roles that have that role already?
Well, also one question is, like, for Green Lantern, which one?
Yeah, Jon Stewart.
It's Stewart.
Yeah, that's because I think for the simple fact that Hal Jordan to me is too similar to some other characters that, whether you're in the DC universe or out of in the Marvel universe, is too similar. So I think Jon Stewart makes sense.
Yeah, and would you still keep the same Flash, or would you change it to one of the other? Whether it be Valiant, Wally West, so on and so forth.
I like Barry Allen, but you guys tell me. You guys are running. You're the panelists. Let's take a vote. Who's your Flash?
Personally, Wally West.
Yeah, so personally it's Wally, but I think if you're cyborging, you should bury it up in Justice, and then Titans with Wall-E and Cyborg.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say.
Agree. All right. So who's John Stewart, Green Lantern, and Barry is our Justice League Flash. I think that covers the different iterations of these characters. So now, who was playing these characters?
Can we put Ryan Reynolds in most of the roles?
You want Ryan Reynolds in every single role? Sure, why not? I feel like your job here, you came with a mission to just derail this whole thing.
No, because Ryan Reynolds is a perfect Flash, and also he's got experience as Green Lantern. So he's playing a Black Green Lantern.
Let's let Anthony answer this question first. Let's get some seriousness here.
Well, as far as for that,
I love how he starts monotone to answer this question. He's bringing the serious to the mic.
he's usually always brought up in all these roles of Idris Elba.
There you go. I don't think there's anyone else. Like, in this era of filmmaking, yeah, I think he deserves like a perfect starring role of that caliber. I like that. I think it makes sense.
And as far as we know, he's no longer coming back as Heimdall, so.
Right, yeah. His MCU contracts are done, I think. We're going to skip over Josh and go right to Kelly with Jon Stewart. Who's your Jon Stewart?
I think
If you agree, if you don't agree.
I could definitely see Idris Elba doing it. I think also, it's Michael P. Jordan or Michael B. Jordan?
Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, I could see him doing it, but he's kind of young.
Yeah, he's too young. I think you need that age behind it. And I don't know, Idris Elba's just built. Like how I think of Jon Stewart, he's just built that way.
Very heroic.
Right. I'm going to assume Josh is going to agree with that now, not going to be a joke answer.
No, I think Idris Elba's a great.
What about Barry? Who do we get for Barry?
What was that?
Who do we get for Barry? Do we keep Ezra Miller? Because I think he did an okay job. I think he played that character okay. I just think Grant Gustin does it better if you're going to give me that same type of character.
He was enthusiastic. I'd keep him.
Yeah, no, I don't know who I put in there, but I actually really don't like him in that role at all. He's too fidgety. Like he's.
Well, I think like what they did with the character is they kind of made him a little like autistic. I think is like they made this Barry Allen have Asperger's, like a very low level. Like that's what he seemed like he was playing, and because he had trouble making friends, and he was like all gung ho about let's do this stupid stuff so I can have friends, and he was fidgety, and I think if that's what he was going for, I think that went really well. Like I think he played that great. And see, to me, I can't answer this because Grant Gustin is the only one in my head. Anthony, you have any ideas?
Well, since we're not, because I even said that when they were first doing it with Grant Gustin, but since we're not integrating the TV, if they change his direction to not be so fidgety and autistic and stuff, I wouldn't mind Ezra Miller, but he just seemed like to basically say that it was just, what was it? He just seemed odd.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't have it because I can't think of anyone in young Hollywood that's got that look of Barry Allen, except for who we've seen, the two that we've seen on TV and in the film.
And technically, I could think of somebody, but he's a little bit busy web swinging around.
Tom Holland? No, don't take Tom Holland for my Spider-Verse.
If he wasn't doing it, I can almost see him being a Flash, but leave him.
Right.
Yeah, you got it. Don't touch him.
Who was the guy before him?
Andrew Garfield. Yeah, because what I liked about Andrew Garfield in The Amazing Spider-Man is that he sounded like Spider-Man. Like he kind of pulled, not great movies. I don't like those movies. Let's not get crazy here. But what I liked about Tobey Maguire is he kind of felt like Peter Parker, but not a great Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield pulled off like the animated show from the 90s. Like that's what I think of Spider-Man as. So he's got like the quippy talking down. So I think that's good.
But yeah, I think he'd be an okay Flash.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know. What do you guys say? Bring me something home. We got two: Ezra Miller keeping or Andrew Garfield. I think Anthony, you're the deciding factor.
No, because like I said, as long as they change his direction, I would be fine with Ezra Miller.
Do you think he would do it better than Andrew Garfield? That's the question.
Well, if Andrew Garfield acted the way he did as Peter Parker, I can almost see him being that Flash.
Okay. Okay. You're very not decisive. Let's turn to the crowd. If you want to see Ezra Miller stay as the Flash, cheer.
Yay! Holy
One
crap!
person.
I'm by myself.
Oh my God. Okay. Let's hear for Andrew Garfield as the Flash. All right, guys,
Look,
come on.
Garfield
It's
got a
Saturday
neck.
night. Let's pretend we're all awake and let's do this again. Ezra Miller,
Yay!
Andrew Garfield. You don't care.
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah! See, he got one. Ryan Lucas.
The thing is, I could see Ryan Reynolds doing a good Flash. Better than Hal Jordan, I think. I think he can play that much better. Let's go. I'm going to stick with Ezra Miller though, because I do think he did. As
After all that.
Ezra Miller. So that leaves Martian Manhunter.
David Ogden Steers.
George Lucas.
He's a shapeshifter.
George Lucas. It's true. It's true.
Phil Mars,
Who?
the guy who did him on. Yeah, his dad was in Mission Impossible and Star Trek, and he plays Cyborg's dad in Doom Patrol. Mars is good.
Yeah.
Phil Mars.
He played it in Smallville.
Yeah, he also played what's that?
Yeah.
Jackie Charles or Jackie, whatever his name is.
That's good. That's
on
good.
Seinfeld.
I like David Harewood, who does it on Supergirl.
He's all right.
He's all right.
There's too many British cats doing our. I mean, no offense. Every superhero's from Britain. Batman, Superman.
Batfleck. He's not.
Christian Bale is. Or did I have to yell at you and cuss at you to make you understand?
Listen, but Christian Bale's old, dude.
But everybody. The new Spider-Man's British. Thor's British
I feel like there's a lot of hate.
Australian.
Shit.
I mean, come on. I'm not trying hating, but what? You don't have American actors anymore? Wow.
There's a line. That's the line we're crossing here. We're not. Okay, David Harewood's out. We're going to go.
Oh, I'm just glad Aquaman ain't a white dude with blonde hair. That's a win.
All right. So we build now. Do we build towards Justice League first, or Batman versus Superman first?
Oh, Justice League first.
Justice League. And what story do you tell with Justice League? Ooh. That's the story, because I don't know that what we got works. I mean, I enjoyed sitting in the theater watching that movie. I can't tell you a thing about it.
Tower of Babel. That leads right to Batman versus Superman.
Okay.
You know what that story is about, right?
No, I don't.
How you host a show and don't know this stuff?
That's why I'm not sitting down. I'm asking questions.
Batman gets all the dirt on all the super.
Right, yeah, this is the Batman knows
gets
everybody.
all the dirt on all the superheroes. And then it's found out that he's spying on them, and Superman gets mad and slaps him around. That's what you do.
I watched they did a cartoon version
Very
of it.
similar.
Right.
But that works, man.
Right, yeah. No, and that's, yeah. Because I think that the mistake that they made is they wanted to build towards Darkseid right away. Unlike Marvel, and I hate to compare, but we have to here, they built towards Thanos in 3 Avengers movies across 20-some movies,
So
right?
do Crisis.
Oh, you can't do that. I feel like Crisis is what you build towards.
But, I mean, you build towards Darkseid. Like, I think that's right. But Crisis then opens the multiverse. So then you can tell Justice Society.
Then I can get Grant Gustin
Right.
on film. Then I get my Barry
Then you can
Allen.
have every Flash you want.
I want him. I want John Wesley Shipp. I want them all.
But yeah, then you introduce the multiverse, and then you are able to tell like Justice Society stories and.
So Justice League, Tower of Babel is what we're doing. Where are you building Infinite Crisis?
No, I'm doing Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Oh, that's
Infinite Crisis on Infinite
Oh,
Earths. Yeah.
You don't think that's too ambitious?
I think you take your time to do it, but that's your first big thing.
Oh, you're talking about over a bunch.
Yeah, over a bunch. But I don't think it's like your.
Oh, so you're not even going to build towards Dark
I think
Side.
you build towards Dark Side as like wave 3.
Okay.
Right, like because Marvel didn't jump right into Thanos.
Right.
They skirted him a while. So you do Crisis first, kill off some characters, bring them all back. And
That sounds familiar.
right, and then then you take your Teen Titans movies and you elevate those people up to the higher level, and now they get to do the whole character story of like, I don't live up to the people who were before me, right? So then you can do the character stories.
Maybe Josh should be running the WB.
Oh, I went from derailing to
Right. He
As long
went,
as you don't bring
to the
George Lucas
greatest
in.
idea ever.
he went from George Lucas to being okay.
Kelly, what story would you want to see Justice League start to tell, to build towards?
I wouldn't mind seeing even Flashpoint. That would be interesting. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot, but it could open the door to telling different kinds of stories. And I mean, the one story I've always wanted to see, which wouldn't at all work with the DCEU have, is Kingdom Come.
Ooh, that's good.
I would love to see them do that, but just with the cast that they have, they're too young. It's not the right build-up. But I would love to see that one.
You need a miniseries.
Yeah.
Yes, you need HBO to do Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
Yeah. Flashpoint I like because that's a way to, even if you want to have
Grant Gustin?
the Flash, yes, Grant Gustin, of course, and Stephen Amell, bring my hunks from CW in, and but also it's a good way if you don't want to do a solo Flash movie first. It's a good way to introduce the Flash, kind of like they did in Justice League, but be it a Flash story more than anything else. But the Justice League are there to, fix everything. Fix Barry's mistakes, because god damn it, time travel is not what you do. If I've learned anything from CW and Barry from there, you don't time travel. He breaks everything. We are running out of time, so let's nail this down, and then we can open it to the audience to ask, people that actually know what they're talking about, a writer, a podcaster, so 2 people that are podcasters. We didn't clarify some bona fides for you.
Yeah.
You went to a Batman con.
Yeah, I delivered a paper at a Batman
To
conference.
deliver a paper about Batman. We should have probably led with that. So I want to hear from each of you before we turn it to the audience, because we talked about how we're going to build up to the DCEU and Justice League and whatnot, and what our Justice League story is going to be. First of all, do you two guys agree with Flashpoint for Justice League, or do you want to? Or the other option was Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Well, one, I agreed with his Tower of Babel.
Oh God, there's so many options.
I changed my option.
What was your option?
I like Tower of Babel, and I liked his idea, but now I'm thinking what DC Universe needs, they need to have intimate stories. These stories are way outreaching and way big. The best intimate story with all the above characters that you guys mentioned is Identity Crisis. That is the craziest story. That's the craziest story ever, because the person with no superpowers brings down the Justice League.
That's good.
Let me guess, you didn't read that either.
I don't remember. I do. I own it. I just don't.
Yeah, buddy. Oh man, that's good.
I do have memories of it.
And then Batman gets to be a detective. Fancy that.
Yeah.
So let's go with that. Let's go with Identity Crisis as our Justice League movie. But to build to that, I want to hear just very quickly. We have Man of Steel, which is what it is. But then we have Batman. We have Wonder Woman. We have Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter. They're the 4.
And the Flash.
Okay, I thought we were doing the Flash and Justice League.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so
I didn't know you were listing the movies.
the movies. I want to hear just a quick pitch of those 4 movies. What story you would do? I want to throw I only have one for Batman. I want to throw this one out there for Batman. This is my pick. I want to pick Batman. This is definitive. Quarterbacks. I love that story.
Is the first Batman movie?
Yes, because I love old Batman. I love the first time we see Batman in the DCEU. He is basically coming out of retirement. I've seen the origin story. I don't need to know about Martha anymore. I don't need to know about the pearls. I don't need any of that. What I want is a really good story. And I don't think there's anything The best Batman story I've ever read is Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Court of Owls. I love issue 5 where you have to turn around, you have to turn the comic book to read it. Give me something crazy like that. Give me a crazy detective Court of Owls stories as Batman. That's what I'm voting for. I'm probably going to overrule you all on. But that's the only thing I'm going to say. So tell me your Batman and your other 3 stories. Whoever wants to go first, jump in. I know it's going to be Josh. He's going to say something about George Lucas and Ryan Reynolds.
No, I'm going to say for Jon Stewart, do Mosaic.
Okay.
Mosaic, like when they rebooted the Green Lantern comic, the series 2, they started with a Jon Stewart story, and it was a mosaic of a world that is at war with each other, and how are you the Green Lantern of a world that wants to tear itself apart? And there's a whole section of that where he's just like sitting in a chair, willing a wall between these societies to exist. And I think that would be a really interesting take of like but the personal side of it, how are you Green Lantern for a world?
Okay. I want to hear, Kelly, I want to hear your Martian Manhunter, and I want to hear Anthony's Wonder Woman. It can pull from the current Wonder Woman movie if you want, but I want to hear those 2 pitches from you guys.
Oh God. Oh, and also this is actually derailing, but I just realized I want to see Hawkgirl. But we're past that now.
That could be phase 2.
But oh geez, for Martian Manhunter, I mean his origin story is so tragic and so sad, but I don't know if that would be.
That's the one I want to see. You just said it, and I want to see it.
Yeah.
I want a movie on, because I'm sorry to interrupt, but I love movies that take you out of the real world. That's what I love about Aquaman, despite the non-fun Josh here, that it takes you underwater. I love Star Wars. I love Guardians of the Galaxy because it takes me to space. A movie set on Mars, I like it.
Yeah, but I would want to see him interacting with our world and kind of adjusting to life on our world, but with maybe, heavy flashbacks to what happened.
Okay.
And centered enough on him that the flashbacks don't feel like we're just seeing random clips of people's lives, but, an actual centered, him adjusting, him coping, dealing with the fact that not only is his family dead, but he's on an entirely different planet. I think that'd be really interesting.
Okay, I like that. Let's hear the Wonder Woman pitch. And then we need to interconnect all these movies before we turn it over to the audience.
Mosaic and
Oh, I think you just kill off Hal Jordan.
What's the Wonder Woman story, though? Do we get an origin story? Do we get...
No, we already had an origin story. That's in this current movie. So.
Well, but remember, in this one that we're developing...
So
we kind of do need an origin story.
We get an origin story, but she's not on Themyscira as long, and she winds up in the proper time period.
Interesting.
Instead of what we wound up in this current movie.
Were you not a fan of the period piece, or?
I mean, the movie was fine, but as far as for a bit of, I guess, narrative or whatever, because if she's got pictures of, we even know that that's where she was from, that's where she was at. So it was what, World War One that she was, so World War One that she was in for this one. But it's technically should have been 2, right?
Yes.
Right.
So how long has she been here before even getting involved in that stuff? So you either gotta just leave her on Themyscira for longer to get involved in man's war, whereas this one took her off earlier and she getting involved in one. So they see just, I guess, if you want to season her a bit more, even though if
Okay. See, it's hard because that movie I think is almost perfect. It's hard to say what you do different. I don't think you do anything. Me personally, I don't think you change Wonder Woman. I think obviously you have to change some of the bits about how it opens and how it closes because it's interconnected to Batman vs Superman and Justice League, and we've changed all that now. So you change a little bit of that, but I like that it opened in World War I because it's different than Captain America.
But also at the same time, I don't think I would immediately make Ares the bad guy.
Okay. Who's your villain?
I probably would just do what they're doing now and just make either Cheetah her first
Okay.
villain, or
Or put it in World War II and just have her punch Hitler.
Yes.
Just do Captain America with Wonder Woman. All right, and how do we interconnect these 4 or 5 films to build the Justice League? Why do they form the Justice League? What is it? What makes them form?
Well, like I said, kill Hal Jordan, right? Like introduce Hal Jordan at the beginning of a movie as the protector of Earth and just kill him off. Or turn him into Parallax, or whatever you do, and maybe that's the thing. You call John Stewart back to Earth, and now you guys have to fight the old Green Lantern.
I like that. I like Parallax too. I like that a lot. Do you guys have anything else to say about the DCEU? Whether it's what we've built today, whether it's about a movie that's already happened in the real world that you liked. I can't believe you haven't watched Shazam.
No, I have. I did watch
No,
it.
you didn't. Don't lie. We talked before.
No, we did. And you said I shouldn't say how I watched it.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Okay, fair enough. I feel like that's a perfect movie too. You don't change that.
It was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. Why do you hate fun? It was fine.
I like fun. Shazam was fine fun.
Oh my god. All right. Last thoughts on DCEU, and then we'll turn it over to the crowd.
Well, at least for me, at some point down the line, what I would like to see is old Batman, to where he passes it on to Terry McGinnis.
Yeah, that's right. And it's Michael Keaton that's playing Batman.
I was going to say, yes. You can even bring in Michael Keaton. I mean, because you can see he can play that old grizzled role if you've seen it in when he was playing the Vulture.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Vulture. Oh god, yeah. Don't get me started on that. Yeah. And now that we're going into the world, see, what I love about DC now is they're moving away from the connectedness, and I think honestly they should. So this last 45 minutes was a big waste because they should not connect the universe. Their course correcting should be what they're actually doing, and that is building separate movies. And if they can connect them together and tell a good Justice League story, great. But if not, I'm fine with getting a really good Wonder Woman story that has nothing to do with Batman. I'm fine with getting a really good Batman story that has nothing to do with Man of Steel. I'm fine with maybe getting a really good Henry Cavill starring Batman or Superman movie. Batman one would be weird. My ultimate dream is to see Michael Keaton don the cowl one more time as old Batman. And I think I think you can do The Dark Knight Returns. You can do a true adaptation to that comic, and you use Henry Cavill. That's fine. Erase Batman vs. Superman and do The Dark Knight Returns, and then you tease Terry McGinnis and you go to Batman Beyond in the next flick.
Okay, right now while we're on Batman and casting, what do you think about her new Batman?
I'm fine with it. I don't know. He twinkled once, now he doesn't. He's going to be a Batman. He'll be fine. He's a great actor.
He can brood. So.
Yeah, he can brood. We've seen him brood. He brood as long as he doesn't sparkle. I'm fine.
So I have a question for you about this. In our new Brave New World of digitally recreating actors who have passed on, if you bring back Michael Keaton as Batman, do you recreate Christopher Reeve, old Superman?
Yes, sir.
Digitally recreate.
I like that better. I do like that better. Yeah. If everyone that needs to sign off on that, like family-wise, agrees with that, then I'm for that. Like that's actually really good, better than Henry Cavill. Yeah, I do like that.
That's the case if we bring back the old ones up. Linda Carter is still looking pretty good.
Last thoughts on DCEU.
So I do like the direction they're going in with doing separate, not connected stories, and if they are, I mean, Swamp Thing was just canceled. So
Oh my God.
Let's throw Swamp Thing in there. I would love to see a Swamp Thing movie.
What do you guys think of the DCU app? If you guys have it?
Don't have it yet.
You don't have it. Well, I mean, apparently you gotta wait. Apparently it's going away. So. But I love that app. That's my favorite. And I love Doom Patrol. I think where DCU crushes it is in the TV side of things. I don't think they do great in the film world, save for a couple of the most recent, like Aquaman Shazam and some of the fun movies. The TV world is amazing. CW, Titans was a little dark, but I did enjoy it. Doom Patrol, I enjoyed way more than I thought. It was a lot of fun. I mean, guys, did you watch the whole season?
Mm-hmm.
You ever watch? You said you had the DCU app. Did you watch the whole season of Doom Patrol?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, the second to last episode is amazing. Like, I can't, like, once you watch it, you'll know why I said it's amazing.
You might have an orgasm.
So now, and we'll have Anthony answer this. DCU app. The rumor is that it's going away in favor of the Warner Brothers app, correct?
Now, Warner Brothers Media is trying to make their own streaming app. So, being that Warner Brothers is the parent company, they want to just strip down the DC Universe app to incorporate it into the Warners, and they're getting rid of everything except for Titans.
Wow.
Which is, I watched the first couple episodes of Swamp Thing, and it's amazing. Like, that's probably their best show, even better than Doom Patrol. Oh, I know.
Well, as of right now, Warner are still in the process of trying to make it so it's not set in stone as of yet of when everything is going away. But if there's some people who signed for a 1-year contract for the DC Universe app, they either going to have to refund all those people that money or wait until after that whole 1 year is done.
Or they just roll that into the next app.
Or
Yeah.
try to roll it in, so it's going to be a lot of.
But you get all those comics in the app. That's why I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a couple minutes before we're probably going to get kicked out of here. If you guys have questions for our panelists here, please line up, and I'm sure they'll answer them.
I'm lined up.
All right, our first one here.
She didn't get my orgasm joke. She looked at me like creep. Trust me. Watch episode 11. You'll figure it out.
Figure it out.
This is more of a comment than a question. When you keep saying that, and you're correct, that DC is knocking it out of the park with the TV side of things. That being said, if Marvel Television was technically related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which they're not, they're two separate entities. If Disney could buy that, y'all sunk. You're sunk. You really are, because if anybody here hasn't seen Cloak and Dagger, it's one of the best shows on TV that no one's seen. I mean, it hits all the right notes, it hits all the feels, it does everything a good show should do. I mean, you got the mopey teenagers, but you like Berlantiverse. It's filled with mopey teenagers. Guess what? I'm 53 years old and I'm not a mopey teenager anymore, so I need man stuff. But DC is running on full throttle on the TV front. You're right about that.
And the CW does shirtless boys like no others.
Oh, yeah.
And for the DC panel, we have handouts for our questioners.
Ooh, I got a handout.
It's from supergrouphugs.com.
Okay, I was wondering, how would you work in the Hawks, and which version would you go with? The archaeologist version, Carter and Shiera, or the space cop version, Katar and Shiera?
Whoa, that's deep cuts.
Yeah,
You want to see the Hawks?
I think Space Cop version for sure, because that betrayal is, to me, that is like incredible when she turns, and it's, especially with the Green Lantern with Jon Stewart, especially with Jon Stewart, for us to actually see him find out that she's not really on their side would be really great. So I think Space Cop version for sure.
Yeah, I don't really have a horse in that race, so I'll just.
Do you have a hawk in that race?
Yeah, I'd say Space Up because the archaeologist is just far as for we keep meeting up every so years. The Space Cop would fit a little better in with the way we're currently writing into the DC.
I'm going to agree with that, because if you're going to do something with archaeology, I want planetary. I want that storyline, because you can turn
JSA.
Yeah, but I've just read. I'm on my planetary kick because I'm in the process of reading it, and I really love that. And to have them involved in like doing a very far off future, where maybe you do have a Batman Beyond going on, and he's with that planetary storyline. So Space Cop for the Hawks, I think. Thank you.
Okay, so one comment, one question. So, you mentioned George Lucas. He could do a good movie, but have you seen the Star Wars Holiday Special?
Oh, yes. Yes. Which gave us Boba Fett, so
Yeah.
there's still something good there.
Okay. And then the question, so, I can't remember the actors' names, but there was recently this whole thing where I think they fired the actor for Batman and then Superman left. So, if they ever, God forbid, lost Gal Gadot, do you think they could hang on, or would that be the final nail in the coffin for the DCEU?
Gal Gadot.
Yep.
Yeah, it would be, I think. Honestly.
What's her name from Firefly?
Summer Glau?
No, who played Marina Baccarin. Yes, just hire her. Put her in there, and you're off to the races. So I think no, because I think that they have hundreds of millions of dollars invested in it, and if they can lose Batman and Superman and replace them at the drop of a hat, I think they could figure it out.
Yeah, if anything,
It would be a bigger hit though for them.
Yeah, it'll just be another reboot. They'll take probably 5 years off and start everything all over again.
And I don't even think you reboot it. Like, if you're gonna lose somebody, any of these actors, I'm over the reboots when it works with James Bond to just replace the actor. You can do that with Batman. You can do that with Superman. You can do that with Wonder Woman, even though we've only had her for a short period of time. You know, replace her like Josh said. You can replace her, and it would be. Oh, I think a loss because I really like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, but yeah, I mean, just replace her and move on.
Yeah, of all of the actors, she would be the biggest loss.
Thank you. I think we have 2 more questions, which is perfect for our time here.
Okay, what was I going to ask? I forgot that quick. Were you really a pro wrestler?
Yes.
Oh, who were you?
Sweet
Not
Christmas.
being funny.
Well, no, I wasn't really much on TV. I was mainly local.
Oh, you were a local Philly pro wrestler.
Yes.
Okay, and I forgot my DC.
And also, gentleman right here as well was
You a pro
my
wrestler?
tag team partner.
I played one on television. Sweet Christmas.
Hey, and I just actually noticed your.
I'm supposed to be Luke Cage.
No, you Luke Cage.
noticed it.
I seen it.
You should have told about the muscles.
I did.
I had the headband and I left it home, so I took the wig off. I had a question. I don't want to waste time because I can't remember my question.
Hey,
Go ahead, make something up.
Make something up.
yeah, make up a question.
What about a Teen Titans movie? Is that in your repertoire? Is that one of the things you're thinking about?
I think so, right? Like I think that's your way into, once you kill off a bunch of the Justice League, you bring them up, and now they have that weight to bear.
Now, what Titans would you? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So you bring Wally up, right? As the new Flash,
TV.
right? So he's like, oh, I have to fill berries. So like the whole late '80s, early '90s Wally West run was, I can't be very fast because I can't live up to my mentor, right? So I have a mental block. So that's a great story to tell, where the Flash isn't that fast. So I think you could do those two things together, where you sort of build up, you kill off, and you're going to bring him back. Because that's what you do. But in the meantime, because that moment, Grant Morrison's moment where Barry actually comes back, and Wally says, I've outrun death before. And there's this really great moment where Barry just sort of smirks and goes, I bet you have. And it's just like, yes, perfect. But you need to work to that.
Yeah.
And so you can do that through a Titans movie, kill off some Justice League, bring your Titans up to the Justice League, have them try to bear the weight, carry the mantle, and then eventually bring them back together so that they can stand tall and be the heroes that their heroes wanted them to be.
Would you make Dick Grayson Batman also? Or would he be?
Yeah, why not? Okay. Absolutely, right? Take out Batman. Have Batman be the guy who, shoots, not Darkseid this time, but whoever with a magic space bullet. And, send him back in time. And then have Dick Grayson step up. No, I think that whole period of, second generation, technically third generation heroes stepping into the mantle of their heroes is really powerful.
Yeah. I pushed you off.
That's a good question.
Thank you.
And final question of the night.
So what do you guys think of working towards more of a DC online universe type Brainiac endgame, where it's more of both the main heroes and the main villains have to come together to stop someone who just wants to control everything?
Whoa.
That'd be cool. If they develop, a solid base of villains, which we don't have in this current one, but if they did, that would be really cool.
Because then after that, you could really focus more on second generation characters, because at least from that perspective, a lot of characters can get pretty easily killed off or just heavily wounded by Brainiac.
Well, I think also if you work through your villain's psychology, right? You tell a Joker's, perhaps this Joaquin Phoenix movie, if you get into the psychology of your villains instead of letting them just be, big bads, then the idea that they now bear the weight of saying, okay, I have to step up for something that isn't just me, right? Team up with these people who I think are my enemies, but well, we all live here, so we've got to do something. Like that can be really powerful too.
You have anything on that?
No.
It reminds me of, what was that recent team up with Justice League where they had to go and it was after Metal, Justice League.
Was it the one that was
No Justice, yes. Thank you. Yeah, the No Justice story. It reminds me of that, and that's actually a great storyline. I love that series of books, and I would love to. That's very similar, where you shake up the Justice League, different iterations of those teams. Justice League Dark, Young Justice. They're all now. You have the Teen Titans teamed up with Justice League and Justice League Dark members and some villains. I'm a big, if you can do villains right, which I think Marvel kind of does. Like, I'm a big fan of Zemo. I'm a big fan of Killmonger. Killgrave is the other one. Love all those villains that have depth, which DC, as you said, hasn't done yet. So if they could do that, then that's a great story to tell. Thank you. All right, that's probably our time. I'm surprised they haven't kicked us out yet. So before we get out of here, I want to thank my panelists. Anthony Anderson, where can they find you?
Blacklistedpodcast.com, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Joshua Wise.
You can find me at All Ports Open, and all of our stuff there is linked on the front page.
And Kelly Gaines.
Find me on Twitter at Kel Gaines Wright.
Don't ask where she writes, because she won't remember. Hopefully we made your parents proud tonight.
And where can we find you?
Oh, you can find me, Kevin Gallagher. I'm the host of the Everything is Awesome podcast and a whole other, I run a network of podcasts. You can find me on awesomepodcast.com, thatentertains.com, or just follow me on Twitter at thatnerdykev. That's where I post all my stuff. You'll find everything there. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I hope you guys have a great Wizard World. One more day, nerd out, guys. Thank you.